This is part 2 of a 2-part podcast.
Have you ever wondered whether a particular book was really good or just so-so, and if you could trust the reviews online? When it comes to books related to permaculture, Permies has a large list of reviews for over 100 books. Perhaps you're considering a book for yourself or a friend, or you're just curious about what's out there. Stop by permies.com/book and take a look at the book review grid and read some honest reviews, and hopefully you'll find the next book to add to your collection.
I've got maybe 2 more questions, Paul. One,
okay.
How often are you finding you're replenishing the chips in your mulch pit? And 2, what are you doing with those chips as the pit begins to fill up over the years, if you've experienced that? And I guess 3 questions. The salt content in that material. So let's say you've got one of these things going, it's been 20 years, you're now finding yourself abundant and decomposed urine wood chips, and you need to potentially dig some out, and the levels of salt in there have gotten high. What's happening there?
Well, first of all, let me take your question and ask you like the exact same question for your current system. And so, do you know if your current system has a drain field?
I don't. I mean, I'm pretty sure it's like a pit. It's like a big pit in the ground. And
there's no drain field on it.
Right.
So, all right. So normally, let me talk about. So I'm not familiar with your system, but I am familiar with a septic tank and drain field. So a septic tank is like 1,000 gallons, and it's split into 2 or 3 cells, and it's got giant baffles on the inside, and it will in time fill and need to be drained. The average American septic tank needs to be drained every 4 years. It needs to be pumped every 4 years. However, a good permaculture septic tank could go 30, 40, 50 years, maybe even 100 years before it would need to be pumped out. Because as you put organic matter into it, if you are being nice to the creatures living in there and only putting material down the drain that will make them happy, they will break down all the organic matter. But still, in the middle, there's going to be this kind of poop Kool-Aid that goes to the drain field. So if you put 200 gallons of water in, then 200 gallons of poop Kool-Aid goes into the drain field, and it gets drained out. So somehow your pit probably has some way of releasing the liquid part of what goes in there. And so I don't know what that is. But let's just go back to a septic tank with a drain field, and let me respond as if that's what you have, because that's what I know. And the question would be, how often do you need to dig up that drain field in order to whatever? And the answer is never. It'll keep going for like, I don't know, hundreds of years of being a drain field, unless something went wrong, something happened, some bad thing happened to it, in which case it might need to be replaced. But the septic tank itself, if you're good permies and you're very careful about what you put into your septic tank, then yeah, you should be able to go 100 years or more until you need to have things pumped out of the septic tank. Most people need to have their septic tank pumped because they're using antibacterial soap. And it's like, yeah, but the bacteria that gobble up the poopy bits and the organic matter inside of your septic tank, they are bacteria. So if you're using antibacterial soap, you're killing those guys that are working for you. And so you're screwing yourself. Other people will flush things down the toilet that'll say, you can flush this down the toilet. And really the answer is, don't do that. So flushable wipes are a great example. Don't flush those ever. They just accumulate inside your septic tank, and now you got to pump it out even sooner. Feminine hygiene products, don't flush those. I don't think there's any of them that will do well inside of a septic tank. Most of them contain a lot of plastics, and so they'll just accumulate there, so that doesn't go down there. But so you're asking me how often do I have to dig up those wood chips? I'm thinking something in the space of damn near never. It is probable that you might want to add more wood chips at some point on top of the pile. But there's also going to be, like, as the willows enjoy that space in there, they're going to reach in there and grow and become larger and raise it up. But those wood chips should, in time, break down, as you're pointing out. We haven't had mulch pits long enough, and again, we're sharing our results now. But there's like a lot of room for optimization, and there's decades more knowledge to gather. And so I'm looking forward to finding out, like, what is the next generation of a mulch pit going to be? Like, what do you need to do 10 years, 15 years, 20 years down the road? We haven't gotten that far down the road yet. Mm-hmm. So this is not a great answer to your good question. And, but I suspect it's going to be pretty easy, and it's not going to be a concern. The worst of it's going to be that the wood chips will in time decompose. But I want to say I've also seen piles of wood chips that were 40 years old, and they were the same size as when they were put there. And it's but they didn't have high nitrogen material coming into contact with them either. They just had rain. And while there is some nitrogen that comes with rain, those piles lasting 40 years show that it didn't touch the pile.
But the idea is that sure.
So basically I'm saying, okay, you found a weak spot in the entire design, and that it's new, and so we don't have a lot of knowledge of, like, what's the 20-year thing look like.
Sure.
I do have a mulch that I've had for 2 years that I've been using for my gray water, and it's the chips have gone down a couple of inches. But that's all, and I wouldn't feel like I ever had to take them out. I think the trees just eat the material. And
right, that's what I was going to say. The trees eat.
I might add more, but I should never have to remove them.
What type of chips are the best for? Would you use cedar chips?
Well, I would never use cedar chips.
Okay.
But normally what I say when people ask that question, before somebody says cedar chips, because no one's ever said cedar chips before, what I usually say is, because they're like, what's the best? And it's like, I could talk about the best. But well,
that's what really we have. We have a lot of cedar chips. Like, it's like what's on hand. That's why I asked. But
yeah. That's going to okay. What's on hand is almost always the answer.
Unless it's cedar.
But unless it's cedar. Don't use cedar chips. I mean, cedar has a bunch of stuff woven into it to make growies sad. Have you ever been to a beautiful cedar grove and you're like, oh, this place is so beautiful. I can walk between the cedars so easily. It's so nice. And it's like, where's all the other growies? And it's the cedar killed them.
Right.
So the cedar poisoned them. And so basically it's like, okay, now how do you feel about putting that next to a willow tree? I think the willow tree ain't going to like it.
Right.
So cedar's not a great choice. You want something that's going to rot well. And so, but most people, especially here in the Pacific Northwest, are going to be like, oh, man, I got so much conifer stuff that's not cedar. I've got pine and fir and spruce. Yeah. I've got it by the metric ton. And so that turns out to be what most people use. Now, if you want to use the best, it's like, well, hardwood. I would say alder or cottonwood or something like that. Maybe birch, but most people don't have that.
Right. Got it. Very good. This is sounding good. I really like the system, and I really like that there's a gray water component in, it's all built in. Do you have any of these plans and systems like available or published or somewhere online, or this is like you're like, I'm so glad you asked. No, I was just
I will say that Andreas and I have been working very hard the last couple of months, and we hope to come up with a Kickstarter soon for a movie and plans and a draft ebook. And so I know that already this morning I worked on the draft ebook, and I'm pretending that Andreas was probably working on one of the sets of plans. So some of the images that you saw are images that he's been putting together for the draft plans. And the movie is like a good 80% done. And one of the draft plans looked like it was 95% done. And I understand that here in a couple of hours, Andreas is going to be showing me the other set of plans. And the ebook is on me, and I've been working on it. I'd say that the ebook is maybe a little more than half done right now. And so it's a race to see who will finish all the artifacts first. So hopefully we'll have something soon. But we've been putting out YouTube videos, and we've been updating a bunch of threads at Permies with a bunch of information. And we're trying to do our best to share what we have learned so far. And I hope it will be received well. I hope that thousands and thousands of other people will implement it and then start to optimize all of these systems, and we'll all grow as a community, and that this is just the first step. But I think there's plenty of room for optimization, whereas I think a sewage treatment plant is pretty much optimized as far as it can go. So I do believe, and I've got a lot to say about how I think this is a dramatic improvement. Now, I do have one question for you, and I kind of feel like this is going to be, because like let's say you put a sign up inside of a shower, and it says everything that goes down the drain goes out to our willow tree. Please don't put anything down the drain that could make our willow tree sad. Now, you might want to change the poetry of that, but the bottom line is that what products do people use in the shower or in a bathroom sink that, before, people just don't think about it. They just send all kinds of junk down the drain, and it doesn't matter. They can go get any product they want. But, how are people going to feel about, not putting product down, and what's that going to look like? And how's it? I think that's the key. But part of it is that once people are aware that anything they put in there could kill the willow tree, suddenly how they choose to live their lives could be at least a little different.
I think that's awesome. And I will say that we're mostly pretty natural, like Dr. Bronner's-y kind of folks. Is Dr. Bronner's not good? Look at the face. I'm like, I don't know. We're pretty basic we don't use like fragrancy, like super commercial gross soaps and antibacterial stuff, but we're not like super strictly gray water either. And there probably is a lot of research that needs to happen, at least on my part, to educate myself and others about what products are appropriate. And you probably know a lot more about this. But I think people would be I think most of us would be, I'm just thinking about our very specific community right now and who uses like products and what type of products people do use. But I would say for the most part, we are in the more natural realm of product use. However, I don't know. Maybe, again, I'm curious. What is your opinion of Dr. Bronner's?
Once you start to think about like you could kill the willow tree.
Right.
Then it's like you kind of got one shot. I mean, if all your willow trees die suddenly because of something somebody put down the drain,
right,
then it's like that's the weakness of the system.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, but on the other hand, it's like, how do you feel about putting Dr. Bronner's down the sink, and then the Dr. Bronner's goes into the river and into the ocean?
Right. Well, that's what I think too. I wish I could show you willow trees back here. There's some really pretty big willow trees that we got going on. But yeah, no, that's the thing. There is no way. That was what I studied a lot with Tom Ward, now Hazel, for years, and that was something that Hazel would always say. There is no way, which I really always love to think about, because I do feel that way. And yeah, knowing that you could kill the willow tree is really not different than poisoning all of the rivers and fish and all of the trees that are in our water systems that are getting poisoned by all of our waste constantly. So
yeah, and it's like, it's just, and we've kind of embraced it as like, let people buy all the poison that they want and send it down the drain all they want, because it's a way. And yeah, it's killing off the coral reefs, and it's like causing all this other massive damage to the ocean, which is so huge and so deep, and yet it's being so brutally damaged, and our rivers are being destroyed. And it's kind of like, all right, how much of this are we going to personally own? And it's like, well, my footprint is less than my neighbor's, so, I have license to keep it. And I'm kind of thinking like, well, can we at least think about it a little bit? Now, I'm going to say a thing which I think a lot of people will hear as being crazy, but for the last 15 years, I have not used any soap or shampoo in the shower of any kind. And so we refer to it as pure water. And I still shower every day, but I don't use any soap or shampoo. And look, I got curly hair, and granted, I'm a little bald, but I've been a little bald for 15 years. In fact, maybe it's even more hair than 15 years ago. I don't know. But it is a path that I have chosen because I have concerns about soaps, including Dr. Bronner's, going down the drain and being a poison. And so it's like, okay, how can I do better? And so I experimented with it because I'd heard of it. I didn't invent it. And it worked well for me. It worked really well.
I know, but look at my hair. I don't know if Samantha has anything to say about. I mean, I have very long hair. I just feel like I need to shampoo my hair.
I've got a lot of hair.
Do you shower? Do you use soap?
I don't use soap or shampoo, and I haven't for probably 2, maybe 3 years.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
And that works good for your hair.
It works way better than when I used to use shampoo and conditioner. I just thought I never could get enough shampoo or conditioner on my hair, and it was always a tangled mess. And I just thought I wasn't spending enough money on products. I wasn't using enough of the products.
Well, that's what they want you to think, right?
So when I stopped using anything, I did do kombucha vinegar rinse a few times. But I haven't even done that for like probably over a year. And my hair is really way nicer than it used to be.
I think it takes like a week or two to transition because your natural system for your hair care has been repressed for decades. And now you've got this other pattern. And then for the first several days or weeks or something like that, your hair will seem to be greasy, but that's because that's the shampoo. it left a residue in your hair, and it's going to be a while until you can get rid of that. And then the natural oils of what you put into your hair yourself are going to take a while to come back and do their job. And so, but I kind of feel like it sounds crazy to most people, but then it's kind of like, all right, I am never going to drink Dr. Bronner's, but that's kind of where my mind goes. I kind of think about that, like, if I'm not going to drink it, why am I going to make this willow tree drink it? And it's like, okay, so what is the answer? And for us, step one, I don't use any soap or shampoo in the shower. And then at our sink, we've got the Oasis brand soap that's for gray water systems. And so it's actually a plant fertilizer. But even still, when I go to clean, like if I've got a greasy plate, step one, I go and let the cats have a go at it. So I'm going to get some of the grease off the plate and replace it with cat spit. And at the same time, less grease in my plumbing. That is always a good thing. Right. And I do think that cleaning cat spit off of a plate is harder to do than cleaning the grease off. But I'm going to give it a hit with some hot water and give it a good scrub. And usually I didn't have to use any soap at all. Right. And it's like, but if I feel like I can still feel a little grease on there, because that's another thing too, is like a lot of people don't realize soap or detergent, it's an emulsifier. It's not a sterilizing agent. It's an emulsifier. Its function is to connect to oils and greases and make them water soluble. That's its function. So if there's no oils or greases on the plate, using soap doesn't help. Right. And so it would just be a waste. Now, all that said, I'm not going to drink this detergent either. But it is designed to be a gray water plant food, which makes me think that it is probably 100 times better, maybe 1,000 times better in a gray water system than Dr. Bronner's. Right. I could be wrong about that. It's a lot of guessy guess on my part.
Well, that's part of teeth with Dr. Bronner's, though.
What's that?
It says you can brush your teeth with Dr. Bronner's.
Boy, I wouldn't do that. That sounds like a bad day.
It's on the bottle.
Yeah, I've totally brushed my teeth with it.
Yeah, it's on the bottle.
In a world on the brink of social collapse, one website stands above the rest to fight back the zombie horde of corporate trolls. Permies.com. Take back control of your destiny and protect your loved ones from the toxic gick coming at you from all directions. Strap on your overalls and start building that bunker of abundance with the good vibes and friendly, helpful insight found at Permies.com.
They say that, it's interesting. I think this is all stuff that it's part of designing these systems and figuring out, and it's going to be different for everyone, but it's a mindfulness practice too, and education that you have to kind of commit to. Like you said, what you're feeding the willow tree with the things that I like the name, the willow feeder. I wasn't clued into the name, the willow feeder system until you really broke it down. But I like the name for the system because the idea is that we are feeding a willow with our wastewater, and
see, now it's not a waste anymore because you're feeding the willow.
Oh, I did have a question also about after the 2 years when your candy has decomposed sufficiently, are you putting it on the root systems of the willow, or like in the mulch pit with chips on top, or like how are you spreading it on there?
First of all, we don't want it to decompose. We want to preserve. We want to get it to we want to make it so that when it gets to be 2 years old, that we have as much willow candy as possible.
Right.
So rather than it composting, we are kind of like trying to make poop jerky, or it's kind of like when you're trying to dry apricots. All right. It's like, I want to dry it out and save it. And so, however, when we open the can, it's usually only half full. So It did break down. It did decompose. And it did dry out. It's a lot lighter. And it's like, so then we lay it out, like usually about 2 to 3 feet away from the willow tree. And then we kind of spread it out to be about 2 inches thick. And then we lay sawdust on top of that, maybe about 1 inch thick of sawdust on top. And so, but I would choose to probably not put it over the mulch pit.
Right, that was my question, yeah. Okay.
I kind of feel like, because if you did, then it would make it so that those wood chips would break down faster.
Yeah.
Now, then we end up with possibly needing to refill the pit or something. Okay. And so I kind of feel like, no, I'd rather put that around the willow tree, but, usually a spot near the willow tree. I'll make a circle on the ground that's a few feet away from the willow tree, but still under the drip line, and rake it out to be like a couple inches thick, and then put sawdust over it. But when we empty the cans, it looks like earth mixed with sawdust. We don't see any toilet paper. We see nothing that we can identify. There's nothing, and it smells like earth. And so it has pretty well broken down, but not completely, which is our mission. Is we want to end up with as much carbon and nitrogen as possible to put on the soil to feed the willows. Whereas, composting toilet systems, it's like, okay, let's have the bacteria break it down even more. Let's do all the things. So instead of the can being half full, it's like 10% full. And it's like almost all gone.
Right.
Other systems are going to shoot for stuff like that.
Right. But we're really optimizing the poop as candy to feel. Well, I don't know if candy is a good word, though, because candy is nutritionally devoid. It's a fun word, but candy is not good for us to eat. And I feel like we're looking for nutrition for the willow, really, is what we're looking for. And that's why I think it is fun. I was just like.
We're calling it willow candy. Now if you're concerned about sugar, let's take a look at the willow tree itself, and the xylem and the phloem. What's in the phloem? I believe it's sugar. Right. Yeah. So it's a tree. It's doing photosynthesis. It's making sugar from sunlight.
For sure. Of course.
Its life is about sugar, and so I think willow candy is okay for a willow tree.
Right. Okay. Fair enough.
So I like the idea that once you get to a point where you're saying, okay, everything you put down the drain is going to go to the willow tree. Now it helps to inspire us to be better. Let's dig deep into our values and figure out what is okay and what is not okay. Because when you're just hooked up to a sewage treatment plant, people will put anything down the drain, including some very horrible things. I would like to think that if it's going to go out to a willow tree in your laundry, you wouldn't use bleach anymore. And when it comes to, what you are going to put in your laundry to clean your clothes, it's going to be things that the willow tree will enjoy, not things that will kill the willow tree. Same thing goes for the kitchen sink and the bathroom sink. So, and it's like, so, it helps us to raise all of our values. Mm-hmm. I would say that this is a weak spot in the willow feeder design, because, and this is where it might not scale, because there might be some people that will not give up some of these poisons, like, soaking their person in poisons on a daily basis is something that they are afraid to walk away from, even though, and they may not even be aware that it's making them sick.
Right.
All right. So,
cool.
Suze.
There's a lot to discuss. That's exciting. That's really exciting. Hey, thanks so much, Paul. I am feeling inspired and I'm feeling inspired and excited, and like I can kind of wrap my head around figuring out something that's going to work for us here. And I'm excited that you're kind of right at the cusp of bringing this system, rolling it out to the general public more, and that I can kind of be a part of it in some small way and maybe help inspire and educate other folks too to get that going as well.
I hope that this idea turns out to be as rock solid as I feel like it is right now. But of course, we need more testing, more examples of this running and things like that. And I hope that it's a stepping stone to solving global problems.
Do you have any contacts or folks that you're in touch with more of an urban homestead type situation like mine that have implemented systems like this yet?
Urban, nobody comes to mind, but I am surprised. I mean, we've talked about in the forums at Permies the willow feeder systems for a solid 12 years now, maybe longer. And
right.
It does sound like there are people that have done things. I've heard of people doing something like having a business. I read somewhere where somebody had a business that was based on the willow feeder system, but their business was to provide an alternative to porta potties. And so then they would put the structures out with the cans, and then the cans would fill at an event, and then they would do the aging thing and then feed it to willow trees later.
I wonder if that's there's some folks up here. I don't know if they're Pacific Northwest. They're called Holy Shit. And they had this it was really interesting. They had a kind of they set it up like a temple to poop. And they even had like a poop altar. I mean, it was just wild. And they would be at these festivals and stuff. You probably would have loved it. They had like flowers and these really beautiful composting toilets. And I think they were, the they also would have porta potties at these some of the festivals I saw them at, but they were kind of this crew of Permies with their shit system, and it was kind of cool. And I'm pretty sure they were doing the willow tree thing. But maybe that was they were an interesting group of folks for sure.
Yeah,
here's the thing.
Yeah.
Where you and I have knowledge of, and so maybe while you're here to fish this out because it's just delightful. You've been to Cobbville.
That's right.
Yeah, and they have a fascinating outhouse, let's call it.
It's wonderful. I love their outhouse.
So I think it's just an old school pit outhouse. And then in order to access it, there's like a stick on a trail. And if the stick is down, somebody else is there and you wait. But if the stick is not blocking the way, then you walk down the path and you get to a platform. And the platform is facing across this valley. And it's a small valley, but it's very lush there. So you're
beautiful.
Facing this very steep foresty thing that's on the other side of a creek. And there's nobody there, nobody around, and it's open. It's totally open. And so you're sitting and facing, 20 acres of greenery, but I think it's pretty obvious that nobody's there. I don't think it would be very difficult for somebody to be over there. And then you do what you got to do. And
it's relaxing. It's very relaxing. Yeah.
When you head down the path, you might want to move the stick so that no one else surprises you.
Right. I think it was designed by a Danish. I can't remember what his name was. He was like a Danish fellow, like a compost toilet guy. I can't.
Okay.
He's a Danish guy, but I remember asking Yanto and Co about that because it's just such a nice. Oh, it's just a dreamy place to poop.
Yeah. And you kind of have this feeling of like, boy, I sure hope I have to poop again before I have to leave. You know, and because I want to poop there at least one more time before I go. And so, yeah. It was a beautiful thing.
It's such a sweet place. I really gotta get back there. I love Cobbville. Can't recommend. I mean, I don't even know if they're still doing workshops there lately or not, but it sure is nice. Yanto used to have this great workshop called Off the Treadmill.
Yeah.
Where he was working on inspiring folks to just kind of, get off the treadmill, and I just love that. This was in like a 3-day intensive workshop where he got people jazzed about, just getting off of it. Even just entertaining the idea that that's an option is a really wonderful thing. What a gift.
We have 9 people here in our boot camp right now. And last night, somebody asked the question of like, is the horticultural systems that I shoot for here, are they like Mark Shepard's stuff? Like, am I a devotee to Mark Shepard's work? And I said Mark Shepard's work is excellent. And I pick and choose all of his stuff that I love and bring it in to what I do. But I would have to say that my end game is very different. And so much like what you're talking about, the Yanto's thing about getting off the treadmill, I said, contemplate the idea of, because somebody was here once and they asked about how do you get permaculture apples into Safeway? And it's kind of like, well, Mark Shepard is effectively kind of sort of doing that. He's getting his food products into a commodity market system. And so I talked about the movie Broken Limbs, which is about Central Washington and the apple industry there and how so many people are going bankrupt with their apple orchards. And it's a very difficult business. And when you talk to the commodity market folks, they're saying, well, we're competing with the global markets in China. And so it's very difficult to compete with an apple where they can undercut us so easily. They could go down to 1/10 the price of what we need for our apples in order to pay the orchardists where we get our apples from. And so it's like we just can't compete. And then the movie goes into people who are selling their apples in a different way. And at the end of the movie, they have the best option, which is basically a permaculture system. And that person's getting a lot. And then I said, okay, now let's move beyond that. And I talked about like, okay, and then I kind of stepped it up, like let's make more money and more money and more money and more money. And then I think a really great one is Sepp Holzer. And so Sepp Holzer charges $100 per person and he gets 100 people a day. And then he gives them a short little tour, like, here's my stuff. And then he gets to his house and he says, all right, that's the end of the tour. Show yourselves out. Fuck off. And when you believe it, those people suddenly pull bags and shit out and they fill their bags. They steal his food. And of course, the thing is Sepp Holzer stopped selling food because it's regulated. It's so overly regulated.
Right.
And so, but he's not selling food. He's selling tours. And then those people would steal his food. And so. Right.
Right. Wonderful. Oh, it's so cool.
And so, the average, farmer in the United States has 1,000 acres and they make $14,000 per year total. So $14 per acre. Whereas Sepp Holzer has 110 acres and he's making $3 million a year just off of those tours. And so it's like, now let's see if we can go one step beyond that. And it's like, and that's what I call gratitude. And so it's something I wrote about in my Building a Better World book. But it's also an article out on Permies. And the idea is like, okay, you have a job, you have people who arrive at your house, and they have to be managed, and at least for a while. And if you stop doing it, your income goes down to zero. But the thing I'm trying to suggest is, and what happens if your income goes down to zero? You still would have some income because of all the food and all the other things and all the whatevers, but you've got this beautiful garden, and you can just watch the clouds pass all day and not have people come to your land. And the only people who ever come are your bestest friends. And you visit with them, and it's lovely and delightful. Every day is paradise. And so now what? Because if you make $3 million a year, that's kind of cool, but you also have to work every day. That kind of sucks. And so it's like, let's look at the scenario where you're not working anymore at all, and you don't have $3 million a year. And it's like, That's not bad.
That's not bad either.
You have really no expense because you're growing so much food, and you have a humble home to live in, and everything's kind of, and if it's all naturally built, there's plenty more. There's the whole Home Depot on your acres. You don't need any more Home Depot. And so that's... Except
for the containers for your willow feeder, you still need to go get those brute trash cans. Or I'm being devil's advocate, but yeah.
Right. And so it's like, how much is that? So over how much? What is your annual cost of maintaining a willow feeder system? Is it less than $100 a year? Probably even less than $50 a year. Right. You got let's say you got 5 or 6 people there. Is it less than $50 a year then? Probably. I mean, there's not much to it. But then when you have a Gertitude lifestyle, Gert still has an income. It's just not much. But she doesn't need much. Well, anyway, sorry, I went off on a little bit of a tangent there. But you mentioned Eonto's getting off the treadmill thing, and I wanted to go a couple steps past Eonto's thing.
Yeah, no, it's cool. Do you have a link to that article that we could put in the chat for this or something so folks can find it too? Is that possible?
Well, I mentioned a few different things, and so I suspect, look at Samantha, she's already going. So we mentioned how to put permaculture apples into Safeway. That's one. Let's see. Well, and right now, Andreas has on the screen permies.com/WF. That's for our willow feeder stuff.
Right.
And then the article with Gertitude is going to be, are there millions of permaculture millionaires?
Oh, interesting. Okay. That's the title. Okay. So we can find it on...
The original article about Gertitude was the idea of, and the shortest possible version is that here's Gert living her permaculture dream life, and if I give her $1 million, she changes nothing. Her life continues on exactly the same.
That's cool.
And in that case, if the life is going to be exactly the same...
Oh, there we go. There's the
Can I call Gert a permaculture millionaire? She doesn't really have $1 million. But if her life's going to be the same whether she has $1 million or doesn't, then I could choose to call her a permaculture millionaire.
That's awesome. I appreciate the tangent. I think it's good underpinning, like big picture stuff. It's good to, talk about the specific things and then also think about the big picture. So I appreciate, thanks for that. I like that.
Sure. All right. Are we wrapping up? We good? Covered enough? Do you have any last minute questions?
There was a lingering question and it's in the chat. I don't know if you saw it. But it wasn't my personal question, it was someone else's question, but I'm not sure if that was something that we wanted to. It was about very cold temperature. Yeah, there it is.
We get down to minus 40 plus, have found that at minus 40, when the septic pumps out on the willow, it kills them. Just something for you to consider when designing in the cold.
Which doesn't apply to me, obviously, but.
Well, okay. Septic pumps out. So if there's a septic system, I'm not sure why there's a willow. Is there a mulch pit? So, and if there's a pump, it must be going uphill. But I would say that, if it's going to get to minus 40, I would imagine that your drain field or mulch pit, whatever you're using, is going to have to be set up a little bit lower in the ground to protect it from freezing. And I wouldn't, in the way that this is phrased kind of makes it sound like it might be on the surface. So, it makes, at 40 below, it makes an ice rink and runs onto the willows. Yeah, I wouldn't any kind of system like this, I would never put it on the surface. I would always bring it to the willows or bring it to the mulch pit below the surface. Now, here in Montana, or at least my area of western Montana, our drain fields are set up at 18 inches below ground level, which I think is pretty standard. I don't know, maybe when you get closer to the ocean, maybe it's not as deep as that. So I would, so 18 inches, it's like the idea is that it will probably never freeze, and if it does, it'll be very brief. But the microbial activity in the soil is still going to be plenty active. And it's like that's the whole idea, is that you're going to have the poop Kool-Aid go out there to the drain field and drain, and then the microbials in the soil are going to gobble that all up, and they do a pretty good job, but not a perfect job. And pretty good is good enough, when there's only one septic tank for a square mile. But when you start getting more density, then it's like, hey, we should, do one of those sewage treatment plant things. So there you go. Suze, was that satisfactory? Did you see anything else you wanted to address?
No, absolutely. I'm actually glad about the question about where, that's a good little detail to keep in mind, although I may be trying to find that ebook for more reference around building and designing our own systems, or maybe getting in touch and bugging you with some more details as we kind of start to actually design and build our own. But you've basically got us pretty excited about the willow feeder system and feeling inspired about figuring out how to implement it here in the Pacific Northwest on our little urban homestead.
I suggest that you start contemplating what all's going down the drain now and see if you 100%. Can get it to be better. And it's going to take some transition.
It's a journey,
Yeah, but I think you'll be happier in the long run. I'm glad we went through that.
100%.
All right. I think we're done. And if you like this sort of thing, come on out to the forums at Permies.com, where we talk about willow feeders, homesteading, and permaculture all the time.
Put Paul's brain on your plot. Do you have a hunk of land but don't know where to start? Do you have a world-changing permaculture idea and you need some feedback? Do you feel like the guy in overalls may inexplicably hold the keys to all your wildest permaculture and homesteading dreams? Well, you're probably wrong. But if you want to give it a go anyway, you can hire Paul for a consultation. He will be all yours for a whole entire hour. Schedule your Paulversation today at Permies.com/consult. Permies.com/consult.